Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into some incredibly fascinating research today to build you a psychological toolkit for navigating the modern professional landscape. Seriously, whether you're just trying to get your foot in the door, hoping to finally get your ideas noticed, or literally just trying to survive a completely toxic work environment, we are going to explore some of the absolute best expert strategies out there to help you out.
Okay, let's kick things off with a pretty tough question, one that totally challenges that age-old myth that good work simply speaks for itself. I mean, we're taught from day one, right? Just keep your head down, do a great job, produce results, and success will naturally follow. Well, as we dig into the data, it turns out the modern career requires a much more strategic approach. Hard work? That's really just the baseline. It's how you navigate the human elements, the attention, the messy politics, the inevitable conflicts, that actually determines your trajectory.
To beat this game, we'll power through 6 distinct levels, starting with the unpaid exploitation trap, then capturing attention and trust, navigating informal power dynamics, becoming the wise owl, resolving workplace conflict, and finally, surviving a toxic culture.
All right, level 1, the unpaid exploitation trap.
So at the very entry point of a lot of careers, the classic internship, we run into this really complex exchange of value. And honestly, it's a total double-edged sword. On one hand, you've got people who see unpaid internships as the ultimate career hack. You know, a chance to build real-world skills, put together a killer portfolio, and network with the pros. It bridges the gap between what you read in a textbook and what actually happens in the office. But on the flip side, it can easily turn into an exploitative trap. When interns are suddenly doing the job of a full-time employee for exactly $0, it creates massive financial strain. It basically shifts the burden of living expenses onto the intern's family. Which means, practically speaking, only people with serious financial backing can even afford to play the game, leaving a ton of brilliant, talented people totally locked out.
What's really wild here is how heavily concentrated all this unpaid labor is in super competitive fields. We're talking media, NGOs, the creative arts, politics, startups. They rely heavily on free labor, mostly because they can. In these worlds, experience is treated like it's way more valuable than an actual paycheck. So if you ever find yourself in one of these roles, your primary goal has to be making sure you're getting genuine mentorship and structured training, not just grinding away doing free labor. If it's just the daily grind for zero pay, you might be stuck in an exploitation trap.
Moving right along to level 2, capturing attention and trust.
Assuming you've broken into your industry and actually secured a role, how do you make sure people see your worth? Because let me tell you, doing great work quietly just doesn't cut it anymore. It's too noisy out there. Instead, you can ethically signal your value using a fascinating psychological principle called input bias. Marketing experts will tell you that people value things significantly more when they can visibly see the extreme effort, time, and resources that went into making them. You can't just drop a massive 50-page report on someone's desk and expect them to care. You have to casually show them the sheer amount of work it took to get there so they instantly trust what you're giving them.
Need proof of just how powerful input bias actually is? Think about this. YouTube star Mr. Beast got 3.5 million views on a wildly boring video simply because he spent 12 straight hours cutting a table in half with a plastic knife. I mean, the content itself was incredibly dull, but the extreme human effort created immediate tension and massive perceived value. Somebody else copied that exact formula and got almost 1 million views. So when you document your process at work, like casually dropping in a meeting, hey, I spent about 40 hours analyzing 100 different clients to find this one specific pattern, you are leveraging that exact same psychology. It builds instant credibility with your bosses and your clients.
But here's the catch. You absolutely have to hook your audience quickly, whether you're online, firing off an email, or presenting in a meeting. Marketing research shows you literally only have a few seconds before people mentally check out. So hit them with a pattern interrupt. That's just an unexpected statement or visual that instantly snaps them out of their predictable thoughts. Next, show, don't tell. Jump straight into the action or the core problem right away. And finally, use an open loop. Basically, you plant a curiosity gap early on, like teasing some massive result that you promised to reveal at the very end. Keep them hanging.
All right, so you've grabbed their attention and proved you're a hard worker. Now what? Because honestly, capturing all those eyeballs is completely useless if you don't know how to survive on the inside of the company. A totally different kind of game is waiting for you there.
Welcome to Level 3, Navigating Informal Power Dynamics. This right here is where the real game of career survival is played, deep in the shadows of the org chart. Yep,
We are talking about the dreaded concept of office politics. A lot of people think office politics are just inherently evil, like some dirty game played by manipulative backstabbers. But really, they're just the natural result of human interaction. It's simply how groups figure out how to distribute limited resources. It is way less about the formal titles on paper and way more about who trusts whom, who actually holds influence over the boss, and how informal alliances are formed. You literally cannot opt out of this system. If you try to just put your head in the sand and ignore it, you surrender your ability to advocate for your own great ideas.
So how do you avoid becoming a target in this political minefield? You have to protect your reputation like it's your most valuable asset. Strictly follow the workplace rules. And yes, I mean even the seemingly silly ones, like not using the company printer to print out your Taylor Swift concert tickets. Breaking those little rules just opens you up to completely unnecessary criticism. And please never badmouth your colleagues or vent to your work friends. Take those frustrations to a spouse or a buddy totally outside the company. A brilliant survival rule of thumb: assume literally everything you say is going to be repeated as if you broadcast it over the company-wide intercom.
That brings us to level 4, becoming the wise owl.
If you want to shift from just surviving office politics to mastering ethical influence, check out this amazing matrix developed by management researchers Simon Baddeley and Kim James. It maps out how different people engage with power at work. It basically measures two things: your political awareness, meaning how well you actually understand the informal gossip and networks, and your intention. Are you doing things for the good of the group or purely for yourself? Cross those two things and you get 4 distinct archetypes: the innocent sheep, the stubborn donkey, the clever fox, and the wise owl.
Let's look at 2 of the extremes for a second. The innocent sheep is super well-intentioned but completely oblivious. They naively think their good ideas will just magically win out on their own, and they totally ignore informal influence, which usually leaves them sidelined and super frustrated. On the other end, we've got the clever fox, highly politically aware but entirely self-serving. They cunningly manipulate things behind closed doors, hoard valuable information, and build alliances strictly to boost themselves. Sure, they might climb the ladder in the short term, but long term, they absolutely destroy team trust.
So, the ultimate archetype, the one we should all be striving for, is the wise owl. The wise owl is someone who deeply understands all those messy power dynamics, the informal networks, and how the big decisions are really made, but they use that knowledge ethically. They use it to benefit the whole team. They listen deeply, they share information openly, and they always look for those win-win solutions. Their core belief is that it's perfectly okay to make tough calls and ruffle a few feathers as long as you're genuinely doing the right thing for the group.
Even the wisest owls run into trouble, which leads us to level 5, resolving workplace conflict.
Inevitably, you are going to clash with your colleagues. And when that friction hits, it is so easy to just react emotionally or start pointing fingers. Instead, try using this brilliant 3-step framework from Southern New Hampshire University to de-escalate things and find common ground. First, pause. Literally step back and try to understand what is actually triggering your emotions in that moment. Second, engage. Use active listening to genuinely understand the other person's perspective, without just assuming they have bad intentions. Third, address. Collaborate with them to build a solution that actually works for both of you. Treating a conflict as an opportunity to grow rather than a battle to be won is a massive sign of high emotional intelligence.
And finally, the boss fight. Level 6, surviving a toxic culture. But what do you do when the conflict isn't just a simple disagreement, but a deeply ingrained systemic issue? Look at this data. A staggering 75% of employees report experiencing a toxic workplace. I mean, think about that. 3 out of every 4 people. That means you are highly likely to face this exact challenge at some point in your career. And toxicity goes way beyond just having a boss you don't click with. It seeps into your mental and physical health, giving you that awful knot-in-your-stomach feeling of dread every single morning before you log on. Listen, if your gut is screaming at you that the environment is unhealthy, you need to listen to it.
The thing is, toxic cultures don't just happen overnight. According to organizational culture expert Catherine Mattis, they evolve because management makes the huge mistake of closing their eyes to the small stuff. When leaders just ignore minor incivility and tell adults to just figure it out, that rudeness very quickly becomes the norm. And if you leave it unchecked, that environment creates a perfect breeding ground where severe bullying and harassment eventually just become the standard operating procedure.
If you ever find yourself trapped in one of these deeply negative environments and leadership flat out refuses to manage the situation, you have to take back control. Start creating a logical, long-term exit plan. And please remember this absolute gem of insight from Catherine Matisse. Leaving a toxic workplace isn't quitting, and it isn't a failure.
It is a definitive victory for your well-being. By walking away, you transform yourself from a passive victim of a terrible culture into the active architect of your own career path.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a hard look at your current career level and ask yourself honestly, how are you playing the game today? Are you the innocent sheep, just hoping your hard work magically gets noticed? Are you letting a toxic culture drain the life out of you? Or are you ready to use input bias, ethical influence, and deep political awareness to become the wise owl? The choice of how you navigate your career is entirely in your hands. Keep growing, stay focused, and I'll catch you in the next one.